Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is our first College Council meeting for the 2021-22 school year. I think we're off to a great start. Some bumps in the road, which Dr. Sams will fill us in on. So let's get right to it. I expect this to be a shorter meeting than an hour and a half. Let's start with the acceptance of the minutes from the June 25th, 2021 College Council meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Scott Reich, second.
Second, Martha.
Thank you, Martha. Any changes, amendments? Okay, the minutes from the June 25th, 2021 College Council meeting are approved. And I will pass it on to Dr. Sams. But before I do that, I would like to welcome Danae Jenkins, who is the new executive assistant to the president. And she is also our new College Council liaison. So I do apologize for the minutes going out a little late this time, but there was a transfer between the former liaison and now Danae. But moving forward, it should be very smooth. She's been very helpful to me so far. So welcome, Danae.
Thank you.
And I will pass it on to you, Dr. Sams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everyone. As noted by Teresa, what a really almost exquisite day. 5 more degrees and we probably have to close school because it would just be too good to tolerate. But thank God for the lack of the 5 degrees because we have to stay open. I actually am going to spend the first half, if you will, of my report period seeking your advice as a group on 2 items. And then the latter half, I'll just give you a general report associated with the opening of the school. And as Millie alluded to, we'll talk, I'll share with you some of the complications that we've experienced. The first item I really would like to hear advice from you on relates to a matching grant that is offered by SUNY to the tune of about $300 million across the SUNY system. All of the SUNY schools have been invited to apply for a matching grant 2-to-1. For every dollar we put in, they will give us 2. As you can imagine, we have scrambled to really try to take advantage of that, identifying 3 projects. I want to share those 3 projects with you. And there are 2 asks here. If you can help in a few minutes identify potential partners that we might be able to contact over the next 2 weeks, as well as financial opportunities to help us to raise the amount of funds that we have to contribute toward the matching grant effort. So those are the 2 asks that I'm asking you to help us to explore. And let me just share with you what those 3 kind of projects we're putting in this matching grant that we'll send up to SUNY. The first is the movement of the daycare center. Many of you know that the daycare center has been essentially in the campus center. And for a long time, we have really sought to use that space, a little under 8,000 feet, for instructional space, especially when you think about COVID and the need for more instructional space. But at the same time, a daycare center is central activity associated with our mission. So the idea is the movement of the daycare center from where it sits now in the campus center over to Trainer House to bring in, particularly under the aegis of residential college model, which seeks to collide, if you will, academic and co-academic efforts. Bring in the School of Education and the creation of a teaching learning laboratory that will be part of our curricular structure, particularly providing practice opportunity for our students. In Trainer House, we would put the daycare center in partnership with Brookville with our School of Education. In addition to that, we would put a student social service center, providing for our students the full gamut of state and federal aid, opportunity, and support for their success for both students and families. So this center would, in essence, be a one-stop location for students who have anything ranging from financial, economic need, insecurities. We generally call them financial insecurities, to childcare needs, developmental needs. And that site will also, no less important, be an academic site in that it interfaces with our curricular activity and ultimately student graduation. The price tag for that is about $3 million, which means we'd have to raise $1 million and they would match $2 million. The second project, I'll map out the 3 projects and then I'll go one by one. The second project is the renovation of the Rascaller and AV, Academic Village. I think you all are aware of Academic Village being the site of the original campus. And in most recent years, it's been the place where NYIT has housed their students. An effort to bring more students on campus this past year, and in response to NYIT's decision to pull out of that arrangement due to low numbers as a function of COVID, we have done universal singles for all of our students, which means that we have taken the opportunity to move juniors and seniors into AV with a full commitment to have that anchor the latter 2 years under a residential college design. The Rascaller was in the original AV, the site where it was a small kind of student center with a place that hosts a game room, lounge area, a performance arts area, a eatery kind of thing. But Rascaller is the name for the pub on college campuses. It was ours. We are looking to revive them with a major and important twist. That major and important twist is, one, why we revive it and have it function as a much more mature setting for our students, juniors and seniors who reside in that area. We would tie it to our curriculum through our School of Business to teach managerial skills to our students. So what will happen is the School of Business and management students would become part of the management apparatus of the Rascaller, while it delivers, if you will, those general kind of student-centered and student-centered services in the form of a eatery, a performing arts site, a lounge, game room, et cetera, et cetera. In order for us to revive the Rascaller, it will cost us another $3 million, which means we have to raise $1 million and they will grant us $2 million. The final project is the utilization of building an AV again, Academic Village again. As you know and recall, and somebody rescue me if I'm mistaken here, Academic Village once had 4 major buildings. Is that correct, Mandy? Okay, 4 major buildings. What remains now is Building A, which functions as the kind of gateway entry point for all of our utilities, which means that we are forever needing to make sure this place is functional. What we are looking to do there is to put into place our Social and Environmental Justice Center, which is an interdisciplinary program that offers a range of academic offerings and degrees in those areas, associated with those areas of social justice and environmental justice. What would also be in this building would be a maker space, which is an ideation space, a tinker center, a sandbox that has become usual on college campuses, designed to capture the imagination and entrepreneurial ambitions of students. Associated with the maker space would be an entrepreneurial center, sponsored by external business partners who will teach our students how to move from idea to market. The third piece will be a multicultural, intercultural center, which is part of the social justice effort, but is also a part of enabling students to have full-throated agency and ownership of our campus. There will also be an engagement center that enables particularly our juniors and seniors to avail themselves of internship, externship opportunities geared toward their career pursuits. And then finally, what I have nicely called a KIC, a Career Innovation Center, which is designed to ensure our students are familiar with the kinds of careers associated with social justice, sustainability, but also the new cutting edge job opportunities that are being offered across the country. The price tag at this point is $10 million. We would be occupying around 16,000 square feet, a lot of space. It will also include a performance arts center, a major, really nice sized performance arts center in the lower level with associated spaces for artists that will be part of an effort to bring the arts back to the college. Again, $10 million for that, which means we have to come up with about 3.3 million. So what I would really like to hear from you, and I'll just capture the ideas and work them through as we complete the proposals. One, partnerships. Secondly, fundraising ideas. So for the first one, everybody tracking with me? Everybody get where? Okay. So for the first one, can you give me some ideas about partners that come to mind for you around the Trainer House project? Again, that is a pre-K teaching, learning environment and full service social service center for our students.
Dr. Sims, can I ask before about the partnership and the money? Are there just capital or operationally, who is extrapolated funds? Is it an operational grant, or what is it going to take for like 5 years? Is the grant period from the state, you got to do this in a year? Is it by December 30th? Does a funder have to come up with the money, over 2 years? Or just give us like a context of
great question.
That.
Okay, you broke up a little bit, but I think I got your question. I think some of the important pieces are, it's really capital intensive. They would like for it to relate to the classroom. And I think you can see how what we've done is clearly identify the way in which our projects relate to the classroom, but with a wonderful twist, identifying the co-curricular possibilities and connective tissue there. It also, in terms of a partner, they don't necessarily have to bring money. They can bring in partnerships. If we went to the Entrepreneurial Center, you can imagine that that's going to require a heavy duty engagement with a lot of businesses, bringing know-how, teaching students how to move from ideas to market. And so it doesn't just have to be, Teresa, capital. In terms of long-term, obviously we have to make sure that this fits our long-term budget as an institution, but that as well will be a function, part of that will mean that we will continuously raise funds for this effort to include what we are doing on the foundation end.
Dr. Sams, I just want to, I think one of the pieces of her inquiry was also about the parameters of this, like how long do we have, or is there a certain type of timetable structure to, when we need to raise the money by in order to get the match, parameters such as that.
So we don't have to have the money up front. We have to demonstrate a plan for securing the money. Our deadline is, I think, October 15th to send in. They gave us about 7 weeks notice on this. But what we just have to do is demonstrate that we have a plan for securing the funds necessary. And then once they notify us that we are a recipient, then we go about securing the funds. So I think it's fair to say that we have about a year's time to raise the funds for this effort, Millie and Teresa.
And does it matter where you raise the funds from? So just to give you an example, if Nassau County has $10 million of federal economic development money and for unique projects and partners in relationship to jobs and training, does it matter that matched is coming from another government, federal, or state source, or is it all private philanthropy? What was the sort of, and does it have to be a cash match? So is the third that you have to raise all have to be cash, or can it be leveraged?
So the third that we have to raise has to be cash because it's
Okay.
toward the capital. But in terms of partners, there's no limit to the number and the profile of the partners that we can engage.
So it can be
And,
another
It
governmental.
absolutely can be, yes. And in fact, it's
So
encouraged.
the federal money, the federal money that the county has for the bucket of money that they have right now
Mhm.
could be used if you were able to convince Laura Curran to give the college $1 million for, I'm just going to say, job training, economic
Workforce
development,
development.
and you did it in the area of child care, social justice,
Yes, ma'am.
whatever those buckets were. You
Yes,
could
you are
use
right.
that
It can be
federal
used as
money.
well.
So is the college doing anything with the county very specifically on the cash they have? Okay, because they are looking for, they
Mhm,
just called me yesterday with their economic development pot.
mhm.
Okay, so
Yes,
they're a
ma'am.
possible source of a pretty big opportunity for you, I would assume. And the
They
town, you're
are,
in the
and
town of North Hempstead. What's the town that you're in?
We're in
North Hempstead?
we're in town of Oyster Bay.
Oyster Bay.
Mhm.
So same thing with the Oyster Bay would have, we could get the exact numbers, but it's, I know the more Suffolk towns, more that are really operating with about $400 million of money and having a quite challenging time identifying the right places and spaces to spend their dollars for sure. So, all right, it's good to
Yes.
know.
Yes, and you should know, Teresa, that Mike Canane and I have already spoke with the county exec, and we are following up on that line right there. I made it very clear to her that we have an opportunity for workforce development funding. And she jumped right on it, and she expects us to provide her with a proposal for that money.
So that'll
If
be
you
part
can
of,
give me, that proposal, because I am talking to her deputy commissioner who's responsible for that bucket of money.
Okay,
So if you can give me that proposal,
get it
then
to
I
you.
can talk with Evelyn on that.
Tim, Evelyn's the one we're speaking to about.
That's the same person.
And the school of business.
Oh, it is? Okay, yeah, she called me directly yesterday about ideas that I have. So, just get whatever you're giving to her, give to me. And then when
Will
I
do.
talk to her, I will make sure that I will reiterate, you should really take a look at this,
Okay,
whatever this is. And then on the childcare thing, the only thing I offer is a big foundation, and I don't know the college's relationship to the Roush Foundation, but Nancy DeZenis is very, very, very focused Roush Foundation in the whole area of the level of professionalism inside of the childcare industry. So they've actually been the ones financing the 4-star ratings and things that the state have come out with in terms of rating centers and training for childcare professionals. So the college might be able to position becoming a training engine for the childcare industry inside of your space, in addition to co-locating your childcare center, right? I think if you go on the angle of how do you use your space for training, you're going to get more foundations interested in investment versus it being capital.
okay. Roush Foundation, I see Diana Sukram shaking her head. You got that, Diana?
No, I still need the name of the person. Nancy whom, Teresa?
Well, if you look up the Roush, there's a zillion people there, but I'm saying
And
They're in Garden
Teresa, what did you say her last name
Yeah.
was again? Because you were breaking up.
Private Family
it's Nancy Duzenas.
Foundation. So, well, it's not, it's Nancy Duzenas is the executive.
head,
It's,
yeah.
yeah. But Patty, I forget Patty's name off the top of my head. She is the program officer for the foundation in the specific area of, investment in education. So this is where that would fall in. But
That's Patty Schaefer.
again, there are a fair amount of people that I would think the
Teresa,
college
you're breaking up.
knows
You're breaking up a
that know
great deal.
Nancy well. So it's one of the program officers, yeah. So, well, I'm sorry, I'm parked. Let me see if I could repark somewhere, but go ahead and then I'll come back when I'm not breaking up. Go ahead.
What was that, Mike? Patty Shaker, you said?
Schaefer, I think it might be.
Schaefer.
Yeah. Scott had his hand up, Millie. Scott?
Yes, absolutely, Scott.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that more from a networking and set of contacts rather than any, specific interest that these folks may have, but just given that they're local, there's an organization called Friends of Old Westbury. I'll put it in the chat for everyone to see. If you actually scroll down, you can see a number of people who are.
Great, we lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
now we can.
All right, sorry. I'm on the road in Boston right now. So basically, I just put into the chat this website, and if you scroll to the bottom of it, you'll see a large number of names of basically Old Westbury residents who are participating as members, they call it, where the donations are actually low for this organization, but it's about beautifying Old Westbury as a village. And I'm not proposing to say that they're going to want to just come and plant a bunch of stuff, which is what their main purpose is. The reason I'm bringing it up is because this is a prime audience of local affluent people who are already feeling like, hey, I want to give back to Old Westbury as a community. So I'm mentioning them as prospective leads. I don't have contact information for the people, but I wonder if somebody, like Mike or whomever might reach out and say, hey, can we attend their next quarterly meeting or whatever it be, give a brief presentation and ask if there could be a solicitation made or an invitation to a presentation for all of their members, because these are people, I recognize a lot of these names that have many millions of dollars and have their own family foundations. So again, it's not specific to a particular interest that they may want to fund. It's just very affluent people who are very local and have already shown an interest in supporting the community.
Absolutely.
I know a couple of these people. This is a great list, Scott.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Mike and I'll be all over that.
This is
Bishop?
direct
Just don't
contact.
say I told you to call them.
Absolutely
Okay.
not. You got it, Scott. I would be more than happy to do direct calls with some of these folks.
Bishop is next, Millie.
Yes,
Go ahead.
thank you. I serve as treasurer on the Nassau County EOC, or Equal Opportunities Commission. And we have considerable funding, particularly in daycare area, as well as for training of teachers who serve there. I think it could be an excellent partner, which leads me to a follow-up question. Who would be the students in such a daycare project?
Both our students and folks outside of the campus. But it is in its design to service our students who are parents. It has, for the most part, and again, rescue me if I'm wrong, for the most part, it serviced a great many of folks external to the campus in recent years past.
And are some of those parents or students, if you will, economically challenged?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
I think it could be an excellent partnership there, and I will be happy to forge that.
The Nassau.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott.
Did you say EOC, Dr. Elliott?
That's correct.
Okay, daycare, okay.
Opportunity Commission. Am I correct in that the students that would be training, whether it's our students or from off campus, would also at some point serve as the caretakers? within the daycare, or that's separate and apart?
I'm
Like,
looking at Dr. Sukram.
Yes, Millie. So what the childcare would do is they would work in collaboration with faculty within the School of Ed, and we would provide training for our students who are preparing to be teacher educators to work alongside faculty members and other partners to get the hands-on training that they need.
So sort of like a TA, they would be assisting.
Right, that's where they
whoever the
will
lead teacher
complete
is.
their student teaching and their fieldwork experiences as well.
So you knock 2 or 3 birds with one stone.
Mhm.
Excellent idea. Okay.
Any
so-
other, because I have another ask of you. I didn't want to spend all my time on this one. Any other ideas? May
This is
I ask?
Martha's going to speak.
I'm
Go ahead,
Oh,
Martha.
okay.
I just wanted to share the Long Island Presbyterian Church. They are funding a lot of local projects. And my contact is retired person now, but I will try to reach out to them and see if she will be interested to introduce to the committee to present the project. But it's the Long Island Presbyterian Church.
Long Island Presbyterian Church.
Yes.
And your contact is a former what?
He was a former board of directors of that committee. I will get that information for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Martha. Is there anyone else that has any comments on this first idea or first topic, I should call it? Okay, go ahead, Dr. Sam. You can move on to
This
the
this has been really, really helpful. The second one involves the vaccination center that have been on our campus since, I think it was last September. Not last September, I'm sorry. The end of spring semester. I'm not talking about the hospital, I'm talking about the vaccination center that now occupies the Clark Center, which is our athletic complex. They've been there, it remains as the only mass vac site in Nassau County, as far as I can tell. We have been asked by the Department of Health if we will allow them to stay 6 more months with an expectation that with an understanding that they would be able to stay an additional 6 months if needed. We have not answered. We've given them a 2-week kind of period to allow us to explore this topic. But as you could well expect and understand, it was fine for them to be in the center as long as our students were not on campus. Our students are now on campus. They are here and they cannot use the center. And so it is really putting a dent in our student experience, including our athletic programs. All of our athletic teams have to practice and play their home games at Farmingdale, which is not an easy task. It is manageable, but it is difficult. And so the real question is the allowance, for seeking your advice, allowing them to stay an additional 6 months with the understanding that they may ask for yet another 6 months to be a mass vac site, while at the same time recognizing that our students don't have their athletic facilities. So I really am seeking your input and your thoughts.
And what is your proposed ask in exchange for the willingness or offering to do that?
I actually was hoping you would share your thoughts about what that ask would be.
You might know the parameters a little bit better about what that ask could be. How about just share just generally what can be asked for?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that strike us right off. They don't use the entire facility, right? We believe that there's an ability to partition the facility to enable our students to use a good deal of it. The space that they would not be able to use is primarily the gym, but it may be possible for them to use a good deal of the rest of the facilities. That's the first piece. I think the second piece is recognizing that students do want their gym. We are also entertaining the idea of putting smaller gyms within the residential platform, akin to what you see when you go to hotels and some college campuses, where students could avail themselves of exercise rooms, gym activities in those spaces, both in AV as well as down in the Woodlands, and to have them to pay for these gyms. So those are two things that seem upfront obvious for us, and in both, not and or, but both, to have a greater amount of space, to be able to use more space in the athletic center, while at the same time putting.
Chat with Emma. I'm on a,
I'll mute him. Okay,
Okay,
he's muted. Go ahead.
so that's what I'm thinking right now, Millie. Mhm. And if you want to ask the question, can we tell them no? I have not heard anyone advise us that it would be to our peril to do so. It seems like this is an authentic ask of us, and not kind of a, you know, a backhanded way. Well, we asked you, but you really are expected to allow us to do this. I have not heard such a message.
And I believe it's actually somewhat been confirmed that it's not an expectation. It is entirely within the campus's
Right.
purview whether to deny or grant the request.
Right.
I don't have many thoughts on this. Do any other council members or anyone else have any ideas on what a potential ask can be for agreeing to allow them to stay on, given the fact that now we do have our students on campus where we did not before, and they do not have the use of that particular area of the campus and that facility?
Can the schedule be flexible and have potentially accommodation for both students, and sometimes have specific days only for them to utilize it for a vaccination site? Based on the season where students can fully have use of the gym.
I don't
come
think,
and-
so I can tell you, First Lady, that that gym is used. They are really in that gym. They have, I don't know how many rooms, but easily 50 to 75 partition rooms, elaborately built out space, almost like a mini MASH unit. It's not something that we can take down and
Right.
put back up easily.
And I would imagine that would potentially pose some sort of a risk to the students to have the back and forth on and off without a full sanitizing
Right.
cleanup. So the practicability of that one may not work out. What would it cost to set up the gyms and some of the residential halls, like you,
We're budgeting 25 each.
25,000 each?
Yes, ma'am.
And we would ask for them to pay for that?
Yes, ma'am.
That doesn't seem like a big ask.
You want us to ask for more? Say yes, Millie.
Ask for more and then you might get the 25 per gym.
I see Dr. Friskin's hand up, Millie.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Fiskin.
Hi, thank you. I was thinking that some years ago when we did a facilities study, we learned that our athletic fields were tilted 15 degrees away from the ideal. I wonder if we could put in and ask for a commitment to help us redesign those, since they're not yet seated and they could be positioned better with respect to the sun. I don't know how that works. I'm not an athlete myself, but apparently it's blinding in some lights right now.
Thank you, Dr. Friskin. And I think we've also bounced around the idea in the past about a new turf field or things of that nature. I don't know where those discussions went, or if you ever had a discussion with anyone in the chancellor's office about the possibility of that. What I seem to remember is the last time we talked about, can we ask for X or Y in exchange for utilizing our space as a vaccination site? I thought the answer was no, but is there something that has changed?
The answer right now remains no, but we are trying to persuade a different answer. If you saw the note that Claudia put in the chat room, we are meeting on Monday and have been meeting, trying to persuade that different answer. We believe that. So I think there's two pieces. FEMA, who's in charge of this, has as a federal policy, they're governed by a federal policy that says that you have to put it exactly as it was. So but it does not mean that we can't influence the change if we come out of our pockets to do that. So that's what we're trying to explore now with SUNY, because SUNY is also an agreement that we would benefit from this adjustment, in addition to other things that Mandy didn't allude to. So we're trying that.
Thank you. Dr. Kavik, I think, has his hand up, and congratulations on your promotion. By the way, Dr. Kavik, I was very happy to see that appointment.
Thank you very much, Kelly. I really appreciate that. One thing that comes to mind, and I don't know if this is realistic, we're going to be, launching into the renovation of the natural science building. And there is the thought about needing extra space for the facilities that are, not going to be able to take, the activities aren't going to be able to take place in there. If there's anything they could do to provide us with facilities or leave parts of the gym in such a way that we could use them as overflow space during the renovation, that would be extremely helpful. But maybe that's not realistic. I don't know.
I have another suggestion. I know in my community, when they used to give vaccination at the local clinic, they used to utilize the parking lot, a portion of the parking lot, and they used to have a huge stand. So I don't know if because Old Westbury has a lot of land, and we could utilize some of the parking lot area and create that site just for that, just like the way that they do it in Jones Beach. They're doing it in the parking lot area. So we could accommodate them, and so everyone can be happy. Every students have what they need, and they also can provide a site that people can come in and they could just structure how they would utilize the parking lot and safety, so people can come in and do what they need to do.
Just piggybacking off of that same idea, is it possible, because we do have lots and lots and lots of acres, to offer a different space that does not interfere with the students' use and enjoyment of the facilities, like a parking lot or any other area where they could set up tents? Or is it, or are they so moved in, and is it so set up that it would be unreasonable for them to move locations?
I can imagine that they would feel that way, that they are so moved in that they couldn't imagine going anywhere else.
Well, if we
But I
say
don't know
no,
if that's
wouldn't they have to do that anyway?
Say that if we told them to leave, wouldn't they have to do that anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would. And that's where I was going to go. But it's interesting to think that a lot of other places have outdoor vaccination centers, which is what First Lady is mentioning. At our meeting on Monday, we'll tussle with that and try to see if we could offer up an alternative space on campus. We have done some of that, but I'll tell you that we've done it primarily thinking that we will encourage them to go off campus somewhere else. So it hasn't been that we've thought through, in terms of where they can stay on campus. So yeah.
Honestly, we have the space. I think working with them to come up with something that works for both parties is best.
Mm-hmm.
And you just make the change in circumstance, and is the students, right? That's
Right.
First and foremost. You just keep bringing it back to the students. And I think you'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you for that. If there are no, I'll quickly close out.
You have one more, right? Or was it just the two?
It was just the two, but I did want to give you a couple of important updates.
Sure.
Just really quickly, very, very short. We did do a good deal of beautification efforts, want you to know. And I think if you just visited the campus, you will see anywhere from banners across the campus to a remake of the atrium and the student center. I think I shared with you that we now have our students in AV, and we are going to be moving really quickly to improve the physical space that they are living in. I do want to give you a quick update on enrollment. We are about 87% of where we were this time last year, noting that last year was a historic high. Across SUNY, with a couple of exceptions being the larger schools, the universities, enrollment is down dramatically. We actually, considering what we were looking at about 3 months ago, where we were above 20%, predicting to be above 20%, and our 20% lower in enrollment, we're doing really, really well. So our number is somewhere around 4,359 students this year as we speak now versus 512. And let me just add, that includes a vaccination requirement for residential students, right? It includes our financial cancellation, okay? So given that we are in an unprecedented era, I would say that we've done really well around enrollment this year. And a lot of people have played a role in that. The final thing, I mean, I have a good number of things I can provide to you here. I want you to know that we are around the corner from bringing on campus the vice president for advancement for slate of interviews. I think we have, and Joe, rescue me.
Yes.
We have some 10 applicants coming.
We have 9
9
applicants that we'll interview in 2 weeks, and then we'll select 3 to come on campus.
Okay.
Is the council involved in meeting any of the semis?
Yep. When we schedule the 3 to come on campus, we will invite representatives from the council to be a part of the interview process.
Yes. And Millie, I can stop there and thank you.
You sure?
What I told you I'd be brief as promised.
Yes, well, thank you. I mean, I know that there has been an issue that's been very tough for both. the
Yeah, I will
students-
raise that. I'm sorry, you did
Yeah.
allude to it and I neglected to. I think you are all familiar with the fact, I know that I've talked to some of you around the screen. As we open the campus this fall, we also found ourselves having a great deal of challenges around electricity on our campus. We had a number of outings, even on the day where our first years and our sophomores, keep in mind, both first years and sophomores are here for the very first time because we weren't present last year. As they were moving in, they moved in with no power in the residential facility. We have had a number of outings. We believe that we have discovered and have begun to repair them. We have, over the past 2 weeks, had, I believe, 2 outings, and they have been in Hall 1 and 2 in the Woodlands. So it hasn't been campus-wide, but we still are, which is the site where we discovered the problems to be. We're now making the repair in terms of switch gears, in terms of rebuilding some of the electrical apparatus in those areas, but it has caused a great deal of anxiety and angst across campus, not just for our students who are in residence, but also for faculty who would be in the middle of a lecture and we would lose power. We, again, believe we turned the corner. We don't anticipate any more problems, but there has been a lot of anxiety as a result. We are now moving. The latest power outage actually was a major overload of power in one of the halls. I think it was Hall 2. And that caused a great deal of damage to student electronics. So we're now inviting them to give us a sense of what was damaged, working with the vendor who provided the generator that gave this massive power surge. and will be seeking to make those students whole. At the same time, for those students in Hall 2, because they have been the site where we've had these continuous problems, we're trying to figure out what level of refund they are due.
And is there a task force or I just want to make a comment about how wonderful of a president we have. When he told me all of this, I asked him, I said, well, what about the president's quarters? Because I know he just recently moved in with his family. I said, you know, did you lose power too? And he said, oh yeah, my house was definitely affected. And he said, and I'm happy it was, because I got to experience the frustration that the students are experiencing. And I thought that was, we have a very empathetic president. So that was very nice of you. Now, what was my question?
You were asking if there's a group of people.
Oh, is it, there's a committee or a task force that's handling the amount of refunds, or how are they going to get new devices, or are they just going to get money for devices?
We have 3 or 4 vice presidents working on this as we speak. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. And thanks for reminding me. That was something I should not have forgotten.
Is there anything else you'd like to report on?
No, ma'am, I'm fine now.
Okay.
I have talked you sufficiently to death.
No, but this was a good discussion. I just want to turn the floor over to Monica Calzolari briefly to air in this council meeting the issue that the students are having with transportation, and maybe some of the other college council members have some ideas as well. I know that Teresa Regnante has already been contacted and she's given her ideas and her thoughts, but since we have all council members here, Monica, why don't you share a little bit about that issue?
Oh, thank you for calling on me. I heard from one of our esteemed alumnuses, Lionel Chitty, that 2 students from Oyster Bay High School needed transportation to campus. And there is public transportation, but it would literally take them an hour and a half to get here and an hour and a half to get home. And they both have full-time jobs. So they're using an Uber at the moment that Oyster Bay High School is paying for. We did offer them residential scholarships, but because these 2 students are breadwinners for their families, being DACA dreamers, they weren't able to live on campus. So they continue to use Ubers. We met with the high school, and the high school has told us that there are probably at least 8 or 9 more rising seniors that are interested in coming to SUNY Old Westbury this next fall. And we very much want to build the relationship with local schools. And so we're looking for a way to pilot a program where we can bring many students from that school to Old Westbury.
Dr. Elliott, do you have any ideas or thoughts on how we could help get this? It doesn't sound like it would be too costly. So, or any council members? Okay.
Billy, I think I sent someone a letter, well, an email back today that I asked some questions on Uber and Lyft. Has anybody reached out to those organizations in relationship to a grant from Uber or Lyft?
So that was
And
me, Teresa, and no, we haven't reached out. I kind of assumed that the Uber people were independent contractors and wouldn't want to fund a scholarship for students, but maybe the corporate office would, and I'm happy to look into that.
Oh yeah, all these opportunities, you really just got to research, or someone, I don't know who's in development, if it's the foundation or who's doing the background on what are their grant programs. Especially, I mean, I know that my parent, United Way Worldwide, has a contract with Lyft very specifically for people with vaccinations, and they funded in this region, I don't know, about $200,000 worth of rides. So, you know, it's, I don't know who's really in the, is it the foundation people, or I'm not even sure if that person's in place, but, and then the school district in relationship to their busing company. So who is the bus service for that school district? Is it
I
the school
actually-
district or is it private contracted?
No, there's a contract, because I have, there's cases in my courthouse when the company is sued, and it's, people get confused about whether they sue the county or the private, but it's a private bus company, I believe, and I can get that name. I can identify.
Yeah, so
that company.
if it's Coach or whatever, I know it's not Suffolk Transportation, but asking that owner of that business and the superintendent asking, because they have a contract with that provider, usually goes a long way to say, hey, what would it cost us to have service? And what could you do really to defray that service? So if we paid for the driver, do you have a bus? Like that really honestly is what districts usually do when they have like a circumstance of and then especially if you can get 20 students to ride every day. So it's like how many days are there in the college year? And if it's Uber or Lyft, it's times whatever that trip is, and there's, what the number is. It's hard to, I can help, but I need to know like the context of the request. Is it $50,000 that is going to solve this problem for 10 or 15 students, or, what would that look like? So whoever wants to talk with me and share with me like sort of like the 2.0 version versus the 50,000 sort of sky view, I might be able to be helpful to point you in the right direction.
Thank you. I'm going to get those numbers. I think right now, it's almost $30 a day for the Uber, like 15 each way times 5 times
Right, so
4 days.
once all that research is done and you figure out the numbers and you can give her an approximation, then we can move forward with that. I wanted to mention Martha Santana. Thank you for that, Teresa. Martha Santana just posted in the chat this site, and it I'm reading through it about Uber offering 10 million free discounted rides, and they've already started partnerships with National Urban League, Morehouse School of Medicine, National Action Network. So basically organizations with deep ties to the communities of color that have been disproportionately hurt by the pandemic. This is just like it's in the Uber newsroom. So that, Monica, is a great start. And it
Thank you,
shows
Martha. I wish I asked her sooner.
It shows you that they're doing it, they're interested, it's already started. So let's hop on that bandwagon.
Yes, and I do want to say Randy did offer $500 emergency awards to each students, and that we haven't used yet because the school is still paying for the Uber. But we want to do something broader and bigger for more than just 2 students, and not set a precedent for all students, for sure.
Right. Well, I think partnering up with a company like Uber is a great partnership.
Millie, here's the big picture question with this. It's like, if transportation is a need and transportation need anyway, why wouldn't the foundation just set up a transportation fund? Why wouldn't there be something inside the foundation that very specifically is focused on raising money? So for instance, all the transportation providers who are out there providing transportation, giving to that fund and getting that fund up to $100,000 a year wouldn't necessarily be a big lift if there was case positioning around the need for students, whether it's transportation to work, transportation to school, transportation from high school to school. It has to sit with the foundation. And it has to be then an integral part. And then if in fact it's $500 stipend per student for transportation, then you can then decide to sell those at $500 at an event, or it has to be integrated inside of the total package of supporting the college, because it's supporting the students.
Great.
Well, I love that idea. I didn't know if Randy wanted to say something. And I don't know if it falls under the rubric of the foundation or the Office of Advancement and Development, but I agree 100%. Oh, go ahead, Randy.
Yes, well, the existing support for transportation for student exists and resides in the foundation. If we wish to launch another initiative, more robust, more comprehensive, serving people who are not students, we can do that. There are a number of initiatives before the foundation right now that are being reviewed and analyzed. And I think what we need is data on problems. Then we can propose solutions.
Agreed. And that research, I guess, that would be done by the Office of Institutional Advancement. Yes, Dr. Sams?
It could be, yes.
Okay. Okay, that was a great discussion. Does anyone else have anything else to say on that topic before I move it along? All right, do any council members, I just want to let the council members know, since I have you here, there is a lunch at the President's House scheduled for October 20th. I believe it's at 11:30 a.m. And it's a lunch between, it's an intimate gathering between the council members and the cabinet. So I would really appreciate your attendance and just look for that invitation. I think it already went out. And as far as the symposium, if you will, that we were trying to do between the College Council and the foundation? The foundation, correct, the foundation members. They will be unable to meet in person until at least 2022. So that's sort of on hold, because I think everybody would prefer an in-person meeting rather than Zoom. So that's where we are with that. Do any council members have any general comments? Okay.
Yes, Millie?
Go ahead, Dr. Elliott.
I would like to raise the, well, first I'd like to make a comment that Dr. Sams and I are working on a collaboration between SUNY perhaps and the Nassau Police Department in terms of getting minorities involved in the police department. There's a big disparity there. And we've met together with them to try to see if we can synchronize our criminal justice program with their pursuits. And it was a healthy, hopefully something will come out of that. But beyond that, there was one other issue, I should have written it down, that kind of escapes my mind just now. Yeah.
The other issue, Bishop, if you're talking about our last meeting, the other issue related to the fact that not enough Black and brown folks in Nassau community are taking advantage of the housing support provided by the federal government. And the question is, what can we do to help them? Some of that has to deal with, as we talked about it, literally doing some hand holding and walking them through the process. And that's the other, was that the other item?
That is the other item. 89% of the money for housing assistance has not been spent, is not being spent simply because of the outreach effort is not there. And I don't know if that applies to some of the families in school there, but if it was in a way possible, we could do a collaboration there. The money is there, but they do a poor job in terms of the outreach and making it happen. So the money will revert back to the government and go someplace else. And there's a lot of money involved there for housing assistance. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott. Yeah, we want to grab that and not let it go back.
So Millie, in relationship to that, though, here again, it's sort of like, who's reaching out to who? There are agencies contracted from the county with this money in every municipality. So if in fact, give you an example, if Long Island Housing Coalition is the contracted agency with the town of Hempstead, it's about who's calling Peter Elkowitz and asking, can an ERAP, that's what the program is, an ERAP counselor be on the campus of the college, right? So it's like there are hundreds of organizations doing outreach for this money. Two big barriers are, one, people who are renting illegally are having a really tough time walking through that door because landlords have to sign off. So if they're renting illegally, you know, the landlord is collecting illegally. And the other is legal status, right? I mean, here's a great federal government program that says, hey, you have to bear all this information. And a big, huge barrier, because we're running a program in the town of Brookhaven, is there are hundreds and hundreds of people who need this support, but aren't going to walk through that door because of the lengthy, and I give you lengthy, 3-hour process for the application. So if in fact, someone's got to know Peter Elkowitz. I believe he is the contracted agency in the town of Hempstead. He's the executive. Ask Peter to put a counselor on the campus, and whether it's in the student union or whatever building it is, try it 2 or 3 days a week from the hours of X to Y and see if any students show up. If the college can identify by zip code students in Hempstead only, and then give them a communication that says a counselor's here between X and Y. So if you're in arrears on your rent, please call this number. I mean, I think you're gonna have to get like direct. It can't be, again, the 50,000 we hope to put up a sign and kids walk through that door. It is a arduous process.
Teresa, I think that this question is raised often. And I'm not saying this in any sort of a bad way, but I get the sense that the person or office that is ultimately going to be doing this is one of those 10 candidates that's going to be visiting the campus in a bit. So I really think it all goes back to, we talk about these ideas and who's going to, but the responsibility has to be on an office or on an individual to do the research, to get the facts, to get the programs going. And I think it might be that office. And
yeah, listen, I could call Peter right now when I hang up. I'm going to ask him to call, whether it's Mike or whomever. I am sure he will be, sure, let's try it. Let's get on campus. And then the college really has to then take that responsibility in terms of how are we going to alert students that we know are renters. So if you have the demographic data on students who are renting, you could sort of come up with that microcosm of a group in terms of Hempstead or any other town, because it's really all towns have this money. So, I mean, Peter, I'm sure, because you might have the largest demographic from the township of Hempstead, I'm not sure, but wherever, it's at least a starting place, and I'm happy to do it and say, I could connect Peter with whomever there at the college could sort of run with this football to see what will happen.
May I have one final comment on that? I think it's
after you, Dr. Elliott, if I may.
Thank you. One of the problems is that they don't understand that it's a trust issue here. And it needs to be someone who the persons who are to benefit trust as an intermediary in the outreach. When it came to vaccinations, they would say that all the minorities not getting vaccinations. We launched a situation where people they trusted, like people at my church, myself, got involved, and I took 40 people at a time to get vaccines. So you'd be surprised. Go online. That's what they tell you. Go online. You can't tell elderly people there. Right in my senior citizen facility that we own here, we have at least 20 people that are $35,000 to $40,000 behind in their rent. But if you put somebody that they trust there and that talks like them, look like them, that they trust, they will respond. Otherwise, we tell them, go online. So they don't understand how to do the proper outreach.
right, and we're talking about getting someone to be in charge of putting this together and basically spearheading it. But go ahead, Judge Hohauser.
Well, let me, if I may, because this is what I do.
At the time, and then what do? I put the amount of time? Oh,
can someone mute that person?
It gives me the.
Janae, can you mute them?
I don't, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Judge, sorry.
I unmuted. This is what I do, and what maybe some people are overlooking is that the landlords now are refusing to take the ERAP money.
Oh.
And that is a very common occurrence because of all the strings that are attached to ERAP by the legislation. If they take the ERAP money in any amount, they waive the rest of it. And they cannot maintain another type of proceeding against the tenant for at least another year and cannot raise the rent for another year. So that is going to get even more prevalent as time flies.
I just want to point out that Bill sees what happens when things go south and it ends up before him in L&T court, in district court in Hempstead. I think that might be a bigger issue that's probably going to turn into a constitutional issue at some point.
Already has, Millie.
And
Already
it's
has.
going to make its way up through the courts, but I don't think that's something that we can solve here right now.
It isn't, but everybody should be
Keep it in
aware
mind.
that everybody should be aware. I have many landlords from Hempstead who their attorneys are telling me they will not accept ERAP and will not cooperate in the filing of an ERAP application, which the landlord has to do.
Right. Anyone else? Okay, Olu, would you still like to give a report? And if so, please give. Olu, are you there?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Can you give us a brief report? Olu is our SGA president. She's also the student member on the college council, has stepped in into the shoes of Khalif. So go ahead, Olu.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give a really brief report. Starting with this week is SGA week. So thus far, we've had a BK chat, which is like an opportunity for folks to discuss relevant and controversial topics. We've had a community drive, and we are raffling off prizes to the people who donate the most. And we'll do that, I think tomorrow or Saturday, we'll give out those prizes and we'll donate the things that we collect to Haitians at the border. We've hosted a brunch. We've had an open forum, which has been super successful in my opinion. And if anyone is interested in seeing a lot of student concerns, I do have a document of organized notes that I can send to anyone. Moving forward, some of our many focus areas include pushing for more effective advising, because students across the board are complaining about student advising, which is, important for many reasons. Another thing is dining options. Right now, to my understanding, Freshens is a healthier option that we were pushing for, but because Freshens is not done, the entire den can't open yet. So the only dining option on campus we have is the cafeteria. Like, we have Starbucks and the tea spot, but the cafeteria is the only place that really has food, which closes at 8 p.m. And then Sunday through Thursday, I think they have a late night menu, which ends at 1 a.m. But after that, there's no food. And on Friday and Saturdays after 8, there's also no food. So that's a problem, especially because in the academic village, there's one microwave per building. So that there's a bit of a challenge trying to eat. This place is closed. There's no other option. I can't cook in my dorm. My hall. So yeah, another thing I kind of spoke with Carol Knutz about is off-campus vendors. So getting our IDs to work in different places so that if it came down to it and folks did have to go off campus, there's somewhere other than on campus that they can swipe their ID. But that's something I don't foresee happening at least this semester. So yeah, another focus area is student employment opportunities. A lot of students are complaining that they have nowhere to work, and the only places on campus that they can work require that they're eligible for work study. And so if they don't qualify for work study, a lot of them are just left unemployed or having to catch the very unreliable shuttle to go off campus to work. So everything is kind of interconnected. And so SJ wants to make sure we're focusing on the individual aspects, although they're interconnected.
Olu, thank you very much for sharing that those are very important critical issues. And this is the very first time I'm hearing about most of them. I would like to set up a Zoom meeting with me, you, Dr. Sams, and maybe one other person and talk about all of those issues, particularly the food issue, in much more detail, because that needs to be rectified yesterday. Is there any other comments before I take any comments from anyone here or anyone from the public?
The Office of Admissions is hiring tour guides, and we have $100 stipend to work on open house day, but we also need campus tours, student ambassadors outside of that. And we have money beside work study money. And there's a halal truck on campus today with some food right in front of the campus center, which I was delighted to see.
Thank you. Anyone else? Are there any comments from the public? I don't think there's anyone in the waiting room, Mike. Okay. If there is nothing else, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Hey, Millie, I was on mute. Let me just say this before you adjourn, I'm sorry. We United Way are continually each month reaching out to the veterans on the campus that are known to us and continuing to give them gift cards. So we've done 3 rounds. So I don't know who can like add to the veteran list of current enrollment, because there might be more veterans than we know about other than just through last year's enrollment. But if anybody wants to forward me the new veterans list on the college campus, we'll be happy to make sure that, I think we have 37 veterans who we're helping pretty much every other month.
So Ann Denning told me there are 54 to 56 veterans on campus, and I can get you that list.
Yeah, if you just give me the whole list, and I'll look at it compared to mine, and then I'll now add to it. And it's okay if they're not from Nassau and Suffolk County, we will help them anyway, even though I'm the United Way of Long Island. So if Queens, it's fine. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I have Mike.
Mike has his hand up.
I realized it would be poor of me to not thank Teresa. At her last meeting, she offered up funds for students as an incentive to become vaccinated. And we ran that at late in the summer and beginning of the semester. And I can't remember if it was $100 in Panther Bucks for 50 students or $50 in Panthers Bucks for 100 students, but somehow it equated to $5,000. And I just wanted to kind of close the loop on that from the June meeting, that Teresa was able to help us with that, and it seemed to go well.
Thank you. Duncan, did you have something to say?
Yes, with respect to the veterans, there are actually some veterans that have a gap in terms of their funding support. If it would be helpful for us to identify those veterans, in addition to highlighting them in that list that Monica had mentioned, I'll be happy to make sure that we do that as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
What was that, First Lady? Thank you. Second,
Second.
Bill Hohauser, thank you. Meeting is adjourned, and you will get notice of our next meeting, which should be early December. I'll try to get that out sooner rather than later. All right, thank you. Good to see everyone.